I got to ask you out the gate because I heard DB say it in the update, and it's the hot story of the day. Mike McCarthy out as head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. And it would be obvious for Covino and Rich to give a relationship analogy, so I will. It was just last week that the Bears asked for permission, the Bears, to interview Mike McCarthy. And what did the Cowboys say? No! That would be like you knowing that a girl you're sort of messing around with, she's not the one. And you prevent her from maybe meeting a really good guy. Like, isn't that a very selfish move of the Cowboys to be like, you can't talk to him? Yeah, but we don't want him.
Maybe there's more than meets the eye, though. Of course I agree with you, right? Of course. But maybe they weren't ready to pull that trigger. Maybe they were unsure, which is never a good thing in relationships either, right?
True.
Maybe it's a territorial thing. In sports, as you know, moves are made to block the competition sometimes.
That is true.
So maybe that's also part of the thinking. But, yeah, he's gone. Mike McCarthy. Your thoughts on that, too? We welcome him. 877-99 on Fox. What are your thoughts, Rich?
My instinct is that, again, I'm not sitting down there with Jerry Jones. Simmer down.
Mike McCarthy older than I thought. 61.
You know what? I agree. I thought he was just an old-looking 50-something.
Yeah, I thought he was like a good 55 tops. Not that 61's old by any means. Look, been around a long time. Think about him in the Green Bay days, but I didn't think he was 61.
Yeah, time's flying.
Yeah.
Danny G, what is your instinct? Or I was Sam. Dan Byer. Anyone chime in?
He's right up there. Andy Reid's 66.
Is there the same feeling you had when you heard McCarthy got let go, where you're like, man, you know what? Maybe there was some territorial, like, you can't talk to him, and then they didn't keep him anyway.
I thought it was probably best for both parties to part ways. It is just funky on how Jerry Jones operates, and yeah, no, you can't talk to him, we have big plans, and then in a week, all of a sudden everything has changed. Not even a week.
DB, there's sayings and expressions that my mom uses all the time, but they're always better in Spanish, and I don't speak Spanish very well. I don't speak English very well. And there's a saying or an expression that goes along the lines of she's or he's like the dog that doesn't want his food, but doesn't want anyone else to have it either. So that's kind of how the Cowboys were acting. Like, nah, we don't want him, but we don't want you to have him either.
Oh, comido de perro es muy, delicioso.
There's all sorts of crazy expressions.
If I ain't eating, no one's eating.
Sana, culito de rana, something like that. I don't know.
Eso sí que es.
Hello, hecho pecho.
But no, it seems wrong, but I'm sure there was some reason, or maybe not. Like Dan said, maybe it's just how Jerry Jones operates.
Jerry Jones also said that they never got to the contract portion of it, and anybody who's been reporting on this says it's absolutely gone to the contract portion of it. And so I think that I don't know who to believe, but I just wouldn't tend to believe Jerry Jones in this situation, that maybe Mike McCarthy's demands were way too high, and so it wasn't realistic that he was going to return. But it's just interesting to see Jerry Jones point out that they never got to the negotiation phase, even though his contract expires tomorrow, guys.
How about this saying? Forget about the Spanish one about the dog. How about never let your left hand know what your right hand is doing? Why should Jerry Jones, as an owner, give up his cards to let everybody know that this was going to be the case?
It is big business.
I understand what Rich is saying. It's a courtesy thing, but it is business, it's competition. Why put your cards out there is what I'm trying to say.
There's also, though, a trickle-down effect to this. And one of the things that wasn't pointed out, aside from I'll just say this. The Bears, to me, interviewing 20 different people when they haven't had a head coach since Thanksgiving is absurd to me. What have you done since the end of November to not figure out what type of person you want to lead your franchise? So if the Bears had 5 interviews and they're like, okay, these are the guys we wanted, that makes sense because it took 6 weeks to figure it out. I think the Cowboys have had 5 years to figure out if they want Mike McCarthy, and if his contract expires tomorrow, you probably have this same decision last week. But the other domino is you have a whole staff of guys who, if they don't coach the Cowboys, who are they going to coach for? Whether Mike McCarthy does or doesn't get another job, all of his assistants also need to find work. So while it may seem that Jerry Jones is being thorough, it actually didn't do a lot of the parties any favors because it was a week after the regular season.
And that's why I was investigating his age, too, because some teams want new blood, some teams require that old school leadership. So I was just wondering where his fit would be.
We've heard stories like in our world, stories where, I don't know, some big morning show, the host is about to buy a house, and the program director knows they're getting fired, but lets them buy the house. It's like there's a professional courtesy.
Sure. But that's the story. That's the story. But is that really the truth?
Exactly. For all we know,
right.
For all we know, Jerry Jones. I'm going to make up a scenario.
No, but for all we know, that boss that you just described was handed a different budget, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say, for all we know, Jerry Jones came to the table thinking, all right, now, settle down, Mike McCarthy. We're going to give you,
we're going to work this out.
We're going to give you another.
Settle down just a little bit.
We're going to give you a year or so to get this right. And
Quit your hollering. We're going to figure it out.
For all we know, Mike McCarthy came in there. They're all cocky, like, yeah, you are, and you're going to give me a 5-year deal. And it's like, hold on. So let's not all make it look like Mike McCarthy's the victim right away, because we don't really know what happened. But I ask you because you're a big Yankees fan, and you're saying, what does that have to do with anything? The price of bananas? If you're a coach in baseball, if you're a manager, there was always, let's be honest, a mystique of like, if you could be the manager of the Yankees, that's as bad as it gets in baseball, right? You're as much as I roll my eyes at your pinstripe conversations, to manage the Yankees is sort of a damn honor, right? In the NFL, is it appealing to go to the Cowboys knowing that Jerry Jones is just hovering, knowing that there's an expectation by the fans, by ownership, that like, you better get it done, like the leash is short, but you're still the coach of the Cowboys? Is that appealing?
I know that you're angling it to be a position that's lost its luster, but I don't think that's the case. I think being the manager of the Yankees is still a highly coveted position. You're going to get paid, but there's expectations, and I think that's what people are scared of. The expectations that are required for this position.
Oh, the leash is short at any organization, so you might as well coach the Cowboys, right?
Right. Like, if you're going to coach a team, you think there's less pride or more pride in being the coach of the Cowboys? Yeah, there's more pressure. There's more expectations to win, but that still comes with a lot of clout. I think whoever's in line for that job takes that with an immense sense of pride, but with that comes a lot of pressure. I agree with that. I don't think it's a bad thing by any means. I think people just like to shy away from those expectations.
Now, in any industry, there comes a time where it's like, is that guy going to get, or is that woman going to get another job? Do you think Mike McCarthy, after a run in Green Bay, won a Super Bowl, went to Dallas, couldn't get the job finished, but let's be honest, a handful of 12-5 seasons. They had good regular seasons. They had some injuries. It's not his fault. Does Mike McCarthy get a job easily, or is Mike McCarthy the type of guy that, hey, maybe he'll throw his hat in some broadcasting, take a back seat, and then reemerge like in 3 years?
Again, based on him being 61, I think option B is more likely for a guy like him.
Look at the reemergence now.
I think a lot of people want to take new ideas, younger leaders. That's just how I see it. I don't think there's not a lot of Andy Reids in the league anymore.
Who's trying to reemerge right now? Rex Ryan?
Yeah, maybe.
Gruden?
But he also dipped out for a while.
But that's what I'm saying.
So maybe it's time for McCarthy to reinvent himself a little bit. Not saying he's out of it. He could always come back, but is anyone really knocking down his door? What do you think?
Yeah,
DB?
well, the Bears and Saints are possible landing spots for him, but it also puts him in a unique territory of how many guys have coached 3 different NFL teams. We hear a lot of 2. There've been a select group that have done 4.
Bill Parcells, maybe?
And it comes at a high
Marty
price tag.
Schottenheimer, another one did 4. But when you really look at it, like for someone to have 4 bites at the apple, it's pretty shocking, let alone 3. There's not tons and tons of coaches that have coached at 3 different spots.
Even great coaches in leadership, you're right. There comes a point where I'm not saying it's like, you gave it a shot, you're done. But,
yeah, more than two.
Sure.
Yeah.
And if you're and likely because you've won, so you're staying at a place. And if you didn't win, then you're not appealing to another team for a third go at it. Or it's a unique spot, but McCarthy's in it. did have 3 12-win seasons with the Cowboys in the 5 years. This year, obviously, didn't make the postseason, but he kind of fits the bill as well with the Super Bowl with Green Bay. Wasn't like they were awful with the Cowboys. So, yeah, he could get his chance at a third team.
Yeah, the Cowboys have always been good enough under his reign. So that's where the problem is. It's sort of that Tomlin purgatory that a lot of people talk about with Pittsburgh. It's like,
there is something to be said about
they've won, but they haven't won when it and where it matters.
We've talked about that many a times over the years, that when you're like good in the NFL, like sometimes being good it's like the worst place to be.
Yeah, because you're not forced to make real moves because people are still coming in to watch. You're still making money. And at the beginning, middle, and end of the day, that's what it's all about. Are you filling the seats? And they have been.
We talked about Bill Belichick on the show last week in regards to Tom Brady and Richard Seymour and the new leadership of the Raiders. I'm not alone in this. I always just assumed that the Cowboys' job would be the perfect landing spot for Belichick. I know he's close to the Jones family, and it just seemed like he would fit in there. And I read this morning that through back channels, the Cowboys never gave him a clue that their job would be open.
I'm going to take a hot take. Deion Sanders, bro.
Well, you know who doesn't want Deion? Apparently your Raiders like, no thanks.
Yeah, but Deion, prime time for America's team.
I mean, he did win a Super Bowl or two with
He looked
with Jerry.
good in that uniform, man. You never know. You don't know what they're cooking, dude. And a guy like him would embrace. That's the thing. You need a coach that's going to embrace the expectations and the pressure. A guy like Primetime leans into that. He'll lean into that and own that. You know, will he succeed? I don't know, but he's the guy built for that type of position.
So many angles here, but my favorite takeaway might be what we sort of talked out with Dan Byer a second ago. You see so many coaches get the second shot. Then very few get 3. And then when you start thinking about 4, because you got to think of the progression. To get 2, you had to be successful in the first spot.
Yeah, and we're talking head coaching position.
Yeah, to get a third spot, that means you probably were a champion somewhere. It didn't work out at the second place, and someone's like, all right, third time, it'll work out here.
I have a list of the most coaching wins. And do you want to know who has the most coaching wins that was in 3 spots only? And this will go to your point.
Yeah.
Dan Reeves.
Great example.
Went to Denver.
Denver?
Then went to the Giants. And then at the end of his career, the Falcons led him to the Super Bowl.
Where they lost against
the Denver
the
Broncos.
Man. Yeah, I almost feel like
Pete Carroll.
great
Right?
example.
Yeah.
But I feel like the 4, that's the thing. A lot of these guys will get, if you have success, it makes sense, right? Like, look at it like divorces. We've talked about this.
Man, I thought I'd go at least a day. It's only Monday, and Rich had to bring up my divorce already.
No, I didn't bring up your divorce. Sorry, I know you're a COVINO guy, Dan Byer. I'm not bringing up your divorce, but a lot of times, if you have a friend that's divorced, and then they find love again, you're like, yeah, half the people in the world get divorced. Second job, right?
Second job.
Now, if you, second time, God forbid, you lose a spouse, there's an issue or something, like, you could maybe get it wrong 2 times. Third job, third spouse. No one's really going to buy it if you're on number 4.
No. Yeah.
So 3?
No, if it's by the third one, you might be the problem.
But what I'm saying is by the third one, you better
Fourth
get it.
one, you're definitely out.
Much like a marriage, by the 3rd head coaching job, you better get it right.
By the 4th time, people are talking about you behind your back.
I do know someone who is on number 4. And the 4th one is the best one that they've had.
Really? They
Yes.
finally got it.
But
It's like they say, 4th time's the charm.
that's what they say. But there's reasons, like the second one was just a complete washout, just like Marty Schottenheimer only had 1 season with Washington. Like that one really doesn't count.
Like we
So then-
we one of our best female friends got married when she was 18 to a guy for like a year. Like, does that count? I don't know. It does, but you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I think much like marriages, great people, great coaches are going to get 3 shots. By the 4th one, it's like, I don't know. You think they deserve a 4th shot? Maybe they should just give up on this.
And when they do, it's a true testament to their resume and their ability to coach, because not everybody gets that opportunity.
So I think a guy like Mike McCarthy should pick and choose wisely what the 3rd step is, because you won a Super Bowl in Green Bay. You lived off of that enough to get a great job in Dallas. You had success, and people still look at you as, Super Bowl champion coach. You get the third job. Let's say he goes to the Bears for 2-3 years and it stinks. Then Mike McCarthy might be like, dude, lost the luster.